Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the CWT Meetings podcast, the podcast for curious event professionals embracing the future of business events. My name is Miguel Neves, and I'm the editor-in-chief of CWT Meetings. And in this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Thuy Diep, Senior Meeting Planner at CWT Meetings and Events. In our fun conversation, we talk about why the starting point of any event should be how you want attendees to feel. We talk about reframing our language and how that can define our point of view, which then impacts our action. We talk about why planners need to be better event attendees and why behavioral change is the holy grail of events. And finally, we talk about why communication and collaboration are key to avoiding burnout. Hope you enjoy listening to this conversation, and don't forget to check out the other episodes of the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the CWT Meetings podcast. Delighted to have my friend and longtime connection in the industry and fellow planner, at least when I was a planner, Thuy Diep. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, it's lovely being here. I would only wake up this early to do a podcast recording with you, Miguel. So
Thuy in LA and I am in Denmark, so it's a long distance recording here. We're 9 hours time difference, so I think we're going to be in different spirits, maybe different times of the day, but that's okay. I think we can still have a good conversation. We can hold it together.
Oh, absolutely. Our conversations are always just the best of times, and so I love that we get to record and share with others.
Exactly. That's the best part of doing a podcast, is just having a friendly conversation and recording it and kind of sharing it. So Thuy, I know you've been through a lot of different kind of jobs and a lot of different things in your career, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself and just tell us about kind of the first moments that you connected with events and the event industry.
Ooh, what a great question. So professionally, I'm Thuy Diep, CGSP, DMCP, CSEP, and I'm studying for my CMP.
That's a lot of CEPs.
We love our acronyms in the industry. And so I honestly do that at this point in my career for pure just entertainment. I'm actually just, when it comes to testing, not the best at it, but when it comes to just ensuring that I stay up to industry standards and also connecting with different industry professionals with that same certification, it just brings this big world of events and meetings just a little bit smaller. And so my just jump into events, let's see, my past life, I was a professional cheerleader, and I was in charge and led a lot of the event planning within that. So whether that was competitions or our staff dinners or, hotel arrangements, I loved volunteering and taking lead on that. And from there came just, it's actually not PR that I want to do. It's the world of events.
Do you remember, so give us a little bit of background about the cheerleading. Is that something you did in college and then you kind of kept going?
I dedicated about 15 years of my life, starting from sixth grade. I was 12 years old, went varsity cheerleading, all-star, competition squad, all the way to coaching, being a professional cheerleader and collegiate cheerleader. And then I ended my career because I retired in my mid-20s as the interviewer for ESPN, the All-Star World Championships down in Florida at the Disney World ESPN Center. And so that's where I get my interviewing skills. I think a lot of times people, when they meet me, I have this like charisma, this energy, and that comes from really being a professional cheerleader and being able to represent whatever company, that all-American just life.
Amazing. And what did you study? Was it connected to the cheerleading?
I went into public relations, so communications, with a minor in philosophy, because I do love just self-awareness and mindfulness and being able to have deep conversations like we're about to dive into. And so
that was too many promises. You never know.
You don't want to talk about Socrates? Okay.
So you thought you were going to be in public relations, but you have this kind of deeper kind of side as well. And then what do you remember what made you kind of interested in events? Was there an energy? Was there a kind of a way of being around events that you enjoyed?
I love the fact that it's the people in the events industry. Everyone is so quirky and creative in their own unique way. And I'm saying everyone. So I think a lot of times people look at creativity and think, oh, it's the person that's loudly dressed. No, even ops managers and producers, they creatively solve problems. And so here I am as a young professional, and even growing up, I attended TISO in Los Angeles. And so the instructors I had were already professionals in the industry. Michelle Pulsey from Caesars taught me everything about catering, and Patty Shock. And so I was able to really just grow my network right away and be immersed into that culture of everyone needing each other to do their role. And then you get to know these individuals just as humans with their moral compass. And then those relationships build. And I think that's something that's so beautiful about our industry is that, yes, we are all experts in our field. Yeah, I, as a planner, don't own the chairs. I don't own those hotel room blocks. I don't own the rigging and all the AV equipments. And so needing to depend on others for that and trusting them built that relationship that's so near and dear to my heart, that supplier partner relationship. And so I just naturally, as just me, Thuy, not planner side, has this curiosity for getting to know other people's stories because I believe that we're so different. We grew up with different experiences, yet it's the same kind of learning lessons. And so when I first meet someone, I think, why does he strongly think so? He's so passionate about this specific topic, or, well, why was that individual triggered by this topic? And so I just show up very just vulnerable. I hopefully provide a safe and non-judgmental environment for others so then they can share their story. And then that kind of puts the pieces of their puzzle together and gives me my aha moments. And I crave that. Like I'm just so naturally curious about other people's just life story and why it's brought in us to where we are now. That collision.
It sounds like a an interest and a set of skills that are quite useful when planning events and kind of creating gatherings, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us about your journey since then. When did you get, how did you get into the industry and kind of take us to what you're doing now?
Ooh, okay. So I would say I owed a lot to just being a young professional. Actually, I can share that because we knew each other through IMAX. I remember sitting down having our conversation about just life and our travels in the future. And so when we met, I it was a small action that really does change where I stand today. And that was being a future leaders forum, being future leaders, which I know you were also um, partook in that. But the night before it started, I just randomly brought up, oh, hey, could I attend this? Like I was, again, still finishing school, going into my career. And that was back in 2012. And since then, I was invited to be a guest speaker. And this year, I am actually going to moderate the session
Oh,
here
nice.
for
Comes full circle.
and that's my 10th year at IMAX. And it's just, yes, it goes really full circle. So I have all the industry involvements that I've been a part of. I would say this one's the most sentimental to me because it's the future leaders of our industry. So if anything, it's more for me to say like, hey, what's cool these days? What platforms are we all on? Bet, try to use the lingo as a millennial. Cause I remember growing up in this industry, being a millennial was like, oh my goodness, what are you doing for to us? One of my actually Patty Shock nominated me for it was top millennial in the industry back. I think that was a 2013 award. And really from there, it just it helped me understand just where my puzzle fit in all of that. And one of the things I talked about in that article was foundations. And so you asked just how it all started. And I believe that you have these building blocks in order to, get to, let's say, being a planner. I'm really empathetic because I've been a supplier and I had these building blocks. I had a strong foundation. And so I understood how my colleagues, how my partners, what their goals were or their day to day was. So I really approach things with ideally when we get to do business together, it's yes, it's Thuy with CWT. Like it's gonna be so much fun. She's really collaborative. I never want it to be, oh gosh, it's Thuy. She wants things tomorrow with a low budget and it's impossible with all these new concepts. Like I really do try to keep it as a collaborative as possible because I really believe that I know a little about a lot of things as a planner, but to be able to fall back and trust and rely on people who are experts in their field, that takes your event from good to great, in my opinion.
I like that. I like that. So your journey, I know you're now working for CWT,
Mm-hmm.
big agency, travel and events, and you're working on the pharma side, I believe, or on the medical side.
Yes, I like to say I'm in the medical field now. So
But that's kind of a planner role. You've worked with other companies before in kind of different roles. Has it always been a sort of creative planner role, or has it developed?
I would say, like I said, it was those building blocks. So I worked for starting off in my industry. Actually, the first job was MGM Grand Garden Arena. So I was basically like an usher. And I always say, I wish there has to be a video of it somewhere. But at that time, I got accepted to work for either Michael Kors and going into fashion. And I said, no, I really want to focus on events. And so they actually told me I was overqualified for the role as special events representative at MGM in Las Vegas. And I said, no, I promise I'm not. I'm not. Like, they're also like, I was also probably the youngest one compared to all the, it's just being an usher. I got paid to attend all the galas that were happening, all the concerts. And so that really, I'll always remember they said I got the job and I was outside of MGM on Las Vegas Boulevard, just like crying and like happy dancing because I feel like that was just the first step in to getting into my career that way. And it's quite beautiful how when I was talking about building blocks, then working for a entertainment special living decor company all the way up to going third party and to actually DMC work was a huge part of my life both in LA and in Los Angeles. And so understanding and designing, experience designing was a big part of how I look at the way we plan and execute. Right before we hit record, I said, how do we want our listeners to feel, right? That's how I design events. Is it's not just, oh, we want a circus theme for the gala. It's, well, how do you want your guests to feel? Is it special? Is it, is this family oriented? It's not really the themes and the linen colors really that should be first. It's the core details of how do you want your guests to feel? And I believe and of course, what the meeting objectives are. It's not, I think a lot of times people look at like, oh, what's the venue? What's the budget? And so I take a step back and really look at that. And that's because of how my career has developed throughout the years.
Yeah. So you spent some time at PRA, right? From more the DMC side, and that was more kind of incoming and setting up the events, right? And then you were with
Absolutely.
Hot for a while. We've had Liz Lathan on the show as well recently, so
Oh,
I'm sure you connected there.
yeah, Liz. It was wonderful just being immersed in their world, Liz and Nicole, because they are also fellow creatives. And so when we got into meetings, it was just constant, just a flow of yes, and. And so it's wonderful to be put into environments like that because it's your ideas aren't wacky and silly at all. If anything, we want to build on top of that. And so they've really been having a little glimpse into their world and how they saw things actually absolutely helped. And that was during the pandemic as well. And so a lot of people shifted over to virtual. And so having a couple of years of, well, how do we still engage with the audience through a screen, right? How can we use this more of a different universe versus just this is the best that we can do during this time with the safety restrictions that we had. I believed like there was more inclusivity that way. I attended so much more events that way. I didn't have to just fly somewhere, pick and choose. I was able to say, well, I'm going to be a virtual attendee. And that was really great from that point of view. So yes, I felt like throughout that my career, being the planner that I am today, being the puzzle put together person, I developed that because I picked up pieces of my puzzle along the way.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's interesting. Your role now more, healthcare related. Are you able to still exercise your creativity, or are there guardrails that keep you kind of stuck?
I love this. I love this question because I think a lot of times people think, oh, corporate versus social versus weddings. And I, I tend to say I love the corporate world because everyone also understands the acronyms. You're working with fellow professionals, whether that's your hotel contact, your CSM, or just the suppliers. I say I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy enough to do weddings, and that's I I love it because you can be creative if you're just able to come with that collaborative spirit, and so understanding, like I said, the ROI and how every single, let's say, department. So you have your stakeholders who have certain objectives in mind, and that's going to measure out your success. And so from there, of course, there's an agenda, but I always say question why things have been done the way they have in the past. Is it quote unquote tradition, or was it just easy and you already had the details information to solidify that? Do we have, first off, the ability to challenge and change things up a little bit? So being able to do these big, conferences and incentive is wonderful. And I think like I said, there's different ways to be creative, including creative problem solving. And so if it's, these challenges, I like to, there's certain words that I don't use in my vocabulary. One of them is busy, and the other, because I instead replace it with productive, because you can be busy but not productive. But when you're productive, that's the goal there. And then I don't say problems, I say challenges. And then when there's a challenge, that's a good thing because it helps you try to creatively solve whatever challenge that is. And so if it's a low budget, for me, I say, okay, well, how can we be functional in our design concepts then? How can we utilize this versus, oh, well, we'll just have to get water during this event because it's low? Like, how can we go about looking at things from different perspectives? And I think a lot of that also has to do with just being with a team that's like really diverse from all walks of life. That's really important in order to experience design.
So when you ask, what do you want your attendees to feel like? What's a good answer to that? Because I imagine different people have different answers to that. I don't imagine there's a right answer, but what's a good answer that helps you create from there?
Absolutely. I'll give a great example. In Austin, there is a tech company. So of course, these are 20, 30, mostly men. The goal was networking. This is the first time they're all going to come together, and they're more on the introverted side. And the budget was low for decor. So my task was looking at centerpieces. And I said, okay, the goal is for them to network. The challenge is low budget on decor because a lot of it went to F&B. And so instead of just coming up with some floral concepts, I said, all right, this group tends to be introverted and they want to get everyone talking, especially coming out after 2 years during the pandemic. So instead, what I did was, do you know those kind of brain teaser games? Like it's putting the ring out of the loop, or it's kind of almost like those table challenges, like the wooden ones. So you have to, make something into a box. So I did that as the centerpieces, because from there, it gets guests to go up, try to solve this puzzle, and then say, hey, Miguel, like, I think I got this one. and you can say, oh, I've done that one, here, let me help you. And that immediately gives you the opportunity to then start that conversation. So that's a great way of problem solving. You don't need these, in this situation, just these living florals that people are going to look at and say, oh, that's pretty. This particular group with their particular mindset and also the goal of networking, that was a great solution with what the scenario is. So there's no wrong answer for guests to feel a certain way. It all depends on what the event is and what the attendees are. Of course, if it's a awards gala, right? A lot of times people want to feel special. They want to, that tends to be the VIP kind of concept. So again, it all depends on what your challenges are and then what the return on investment is for those attendees.
So there's no wrong answer, just, I guess, understanding what you want the attendees to do or how do you want them to behave. And part of that is also that feeling of how they should feel after coming to the event, right?
Absolutely. When you think about like the charity galas, right? You want to feel what the mission is. A lot of times when I go to attend charity galas, I'm really sad because I want to be, and they do that purposely. They want to share the stories. They want to, if it's childhood cancer, you're going to hear these beautiful, wonderful stories and how you can make an impact. And I think if anything, at the end of the day, change behavior is that like gotta achieve that. If you can tweak someone's mindset to think a little bit differently, whatever that is, whether it's bringing everyone together and getting super motivated for that sales initiative, or again, feeling empathy towards people who are in crisis and you're trying to raise funds, being able to tap into those feelings really does help experience design. And then from there, you just go into the event flow of items. But since there are listeners that are mainly planners, I will say we as planners need to learn how to just be attendees. That's like my one thing right now. I think we are kind of the worst attendees because it's so hard for us to shut off our planner mind and not critique where the bar is and how the lavalier mic needs to get, tuned up or whatever the case may be. To just, I always say, in order to experience design, you have to experience often. And so a lot of times I try to immerse myself into just being an attendee and just going through, just how the entrance and where the bathrooms are, and being able for that to inspire me in my personal life. That then, of course, helps me excel in my professional.
Is that in your mind a type of person that is able to do that? You come across as quite a positive and focused person, so I imagine it's intentional, but when you attend events and you want to switch off that critical planner mind, it sounds like you're able to do that. But I know personally I'm not necessarily the most cheerful, top of the morning to everybody kind of person. So I can imagine others might find that quite hard to do. Do you have any advice on kind of how to turn that off?
Yes. And you don't even have to turn it on. Show up authentically you. When you are genuinely you, we need you. We need Miguel, not Miguel who tries to act super positive and energetic like Thuy, and vice versa. To just show up as you helps. What's that quote? The sum of all parts is greater than the whole. Like, you have so much experience in different parts of your life that when you show up and we get to collaborate, I might not look at something the way that you might have looked at. For example, of course, I live in LA, so I have a lot of vegan and vegetarian friends. And recently I was at a wedding in Tuscany and I asked my vegan friend, how does it feel? They put a little bow by her chair so they knew who the dietary restriction people were. And I said, are you used to just getting a salad after everyone got their meal? Like when you experience and being able to talk about their specific experience through that. And I said, when do you feel the most happy when it comes to your dietary restrictions? She goes, when it's not blatantly in my face that people are like, oh, she's the one with the unique dish that, like when everyone's plates are all put down at the same time, so I can just be a part of that community, whatever that group is. And I thought that was really beautiful. And so, yes, there's no, in order for, I believe, this industry to move in up this hill, one, we got to help each other up the hill, and two, to show up as who you are. And if you can be vulnerable and be who you are, like I need the Miguel that is the way that how with all your experience in life and all your professional expertise, like showing up as you, because I think that just really takes everything to the next level.
I can do that. So talk to me about this hill. You talked about moving the industry up a hill. What is
Mhm.
the hill for you, and maybe why is there a hill there?
The hill, is leaving a positive legacy in my career for the next generation of event professionals. And when I say climb up this hill, I mean taking, I rather take a whole group, lead a whole group up than step on anyone to get up faster. And I think the other quote is, after you get to the top of the hill, you send the elevator back down for the next group of individuals. And so that really comes from that collaborative spirit that I have, being able to help one another and guide each other up, because even though, of course, there's college courses, there's certificates in events and conference planning, a lot of the experience is not by book. It's just being able to be on site and say, how many spandex do I need to put on this chair? Or why did not VIP not get on took an Uber versus look for a signage to get them over? Just being able to experience on site life and the mayhem of that. I was just recently in Vegas for a program, and I had to basically redo the transportation manifest as main arrivals were coming. And it was crazy and it was hectic. And I had a moment where, as I was checking everyone's flights and ensuring all the information was correct, and, you know, I just kind of stopped and I said, I'm having so much fun. Right. It could have been an extremely stressful situation. But when just in that moment being like, I got this, and it's because I have my team with me. It's because everyone's coming with how can I add value to this situation? There's just something so beautiful about that. And it can't get recreated, that exact scenario. And so I don't know, it's almost like adrenaline. It's like I don't ever want to jump off anything like a cliff or bungee jump. But when it comes to being on site, it's like that same feeling where you're presented with this challenge and you said, oh, from all my experiences, and I'm going to do the best that I can with the people that I have around me. Let's do it. Like, let's 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 get this manifest updated.
I'm sure a lot of fellow planners will see a lot of their work in what you described there. So I'm sure. So talk to me a little bit about your involvement with ILEA and also the Search Foundation. You mentioned also your different certifications. I think those are important to you, of course, but wanted to talk a little bit about this association. Is that part of the idea of moving the industry and moving yourself up the hill as well?
Absolutely. Being involved in our industry is so vital, in my opinion. When I give speeches, that's one thing that I say is that our industry is having this network of individuals from obviously locally where you are, expanding it domestically, and then eventually getting it international. And I'm reading a book right now. It's an older book with Malcolm Gladwell, and it's The Tipping Point. And he talks about connectors and how connectors are important. And I said, oh, I feel like I'm a connector. I love, because I have that curiosity of knowing individuals, Miguel, you might be looking for a caterer. And I say, hey, Miguel, meet Steph. You guys are both into astrology and you like walks on the beach and you happen to need each other professionally. Like, have fun. And so being able to have that network is really important, and being involved in it. So yeah, you could just show up 9 to 5, which is funny because in our industry, that's a joke. But when you show up and you say, okay, I want to use my expertise and try to and be involved, be on committees, be on board of directors. ILEA is a really big part of my life because we had to raise funds and sell tickets in order to create these events for other professionals. And I think that's the hardest thing to do. And it actually drives me because when you plan for other planners, that's the toughest crowd, right? So how do we're a little jaded in the fact of we get to see the best entertainment, and a random Tuesday night for us could be at this grand venue with hors d'oeuvres being passed around, an open bar, and other fellow professionals. So being able to really hone in on meeting and genuinely caring about who these individuals are. They could be your future client, they could be your supplier partner that's going to put out that fire for you in the near future, or they can introduce you to someone else. So as I get older, I feel like I'm not as extroverted, especially after 2020. I feel like I need to energize before I go to networking events. And my friends know that I'm the first to Irish goodbye as well. I think people think, oh, she's just always out at all these events. And so being involved in the industry is really important. And so, like I said, I'm now past president of ILEA here in Los Angeles, and I have so much time now that I'm not involved in being a part of an association. And I'm also on my 6th year of being on the board of directors for Search Foundation, which is for event professionals in crisis. And that one is so near and dear to my heart. And that all happened because in Las Vegas, when I was VP of Programs and Education for the ILEA Las Vegas board, I did our first charity gala to support Search. And from there, I was like, this is the bigger picture. Like this, yeah, we plan these grand corporate events, but to help other colleagues when they are in a not so good place in their life, whether that's the fires that are happening in Maui right now, to like medical expenses for your kids, being able to anonymously contribute and help them out is just really beautiful in my mind. So if I could use my skill set to assist others when they need it, I think that's so beautiful.
I'm very happy that you're sharing that, and very good that you do that. For those that don't know, could you just explain what the Search Foundation is and how it works?
Yes, absolutely. So it's a nonprofit for event professionals by event professionals, and it's completely anonymous. So when you if you are in the events, meetings, catering, hospitality industry, you're able to apply for a grant. And like I said, completely anonymous. I have sat on the board for 6 years, and I still to this day, unless someone comes out and says, I've received assistance through Search, I actually don't know who these individuals are. And they, like I said, are fellow colleagues of us through the industry. And so, yeah, you just apply for a grant. Corrine is there to assist throughout the process. And we have a crisis relief committee that, again, anonymously reviews all the the request for help, and a lot of times they turn it over real fast. And there's a lot of sad stories that have been uplifted through, these funds that we have. So awareness, and of course, distributing the funds and raising funds is really our mission. So I get to support on the marketing side. And that's how I met Nick Borelli. And then from Nick, like there's so many little actions that you do in life that end up getting you to where you are now. So because of Nick Borelli, that's how I met Will. And then, from there, Dustin. And again, my network just grew. So the purpose of it, of course, was to help event professionals. But if anything, the board is from all walks of life. So again, that grows the network, and this community of ours gets a little bit smaller from that.
Smaller in a good sense, I think, right?
In a beautiful, great sense.
So great things that you're doing and kind of connecting in the industry, but through different ways, not just with your normal job. I know you also are a podcaster. You're involved and you produce different podcasts. Tell us a little bit about that.
I just show up and we just banter. So Event Brew, that started in 2019. We announced it at IMAX, and we have more Brew Crew members. But the whole concept of it is it's an opinionated podcast, and it's like at a conference, the real connections happen when you're at the lobby bar after the events. And that's kind of the conversations that we approach it as. It's great energy and banter between the guys and myself. But now we've had more Brew Crew members because life is different in 2020 than it is now. Everything's picking up, and so being able to have just that voice to, it's playful. It's, there's times when I'll approach a topic and strongly believe that it's this way. And then most likely it's always Nick Borelli that changes my mind, because he, of course, is a genius in himself. And so it's just wonderful. It's exactly how when I show up at industry events, you'll most likely find me at the lobby bar, like afterwards, just bantering with others and understanding and what's happening, and just different scenarios, because again, there's only so much you can learn in a book, and the rest of it is through experiences. So if you can bounce ideas off others and have that yes and conversation, if we can really dream it. Actually, my favorite quote is by Napoleon Hill, and it's whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. And it all rhymes. And so I really do believe in that. And if you open yourself up to, as traveling, I'm sure there's been so many cultural experience that you've had through your travels. And I feel like that's how we got connected, was through just our craving for adventure and this journey, and not really knowing how it's going to play out, but knowing that it'll be worth it in the end. And that's also really beautiful. And so
take us through your travels. You've obviously been traveling with work, wherever your events are taking place, but you also like to travel outside of work, right?
Absolutely. My mom would say I was born into traveling. I thought about kind of like my American story, because it looks a little different than what maybe other people perceive as American. But I was born into traveling because not only am I first generation here in the US and an immigrant, but I'm also a refugee. English is my third language. I was born in Hong Kong. My parents, I'm half Chinese, half Vietnamese. They escaped during the 80s, late 80s. And just from there, again, it's a curiosity of how everyone lives life. And I just recently came back from my own personal holiday in Croatia and Italy. We went all over the place there. But there's just something so beautiful about learning and seeing different ways of life, whether that's the Duomo in Florence and being completely flabbergasted by all the details, to even like the color palette of a shoe at a store, or how cultures really take on what having a meal is, right? That all really intertwines. It can be the smallest of things that really can spark how you design in your professional life. So when you show up and you get, again, a bigger understanding of different walks of life and interacting with those individuals, from there, not only can you make like lifelong friends, but there could be a spark. There's sparks everywhere as long as you're able. Tony Hsieh says, finding opportunities for collision, right? If I were to just work here at my desk in my home, I'm not going to collide with as many people as if I decided just to go to a cafe one day and run into someone, have that conversation, be open to it. And from there, have it spark something that could be something great and life changing. Like I said, there's all these opportunities, and decisions that you make bring you to where you are right now in life. And so I think that's beautiful. And, it's brought us back together, you and I, because we met at IMX, we were talking about it, and now we're definitely still seeing each other in in a month. And so that's just so beautiful. I keep saying beautiful because it is.
That's okay. That works. All positive feelings. So creating conscious connections, is that sort of how you would describe that? And it feels like that's your professional role, but also how you deal with your professional kind of career.
Absolutely. Being able to be open, have that collaborative spirit. Um, I always say it's really how you, again, look at something. If there's a problem, I go into that's a great thing. That's actually where my learning lessons happen, because it's not temporary. It's not permanent failure. It's temporary defeat. And the difference between the two is that learning lesson. So you're it would be, and especially because we're going into October, which is like burnout, stress out month for a lot of event professionals. And so being able to approach things with, okay, like, let me take a moment, think about this. Let me have emotional intelligence. Okay, what's the sacrifice I'm gonna do, like need to give? What's the gain? Is it worth it? Am I gonna have to take away some more family time for this trip? Is it worth it? Maybe, or no, it's not. And being able to just fill all cups of life. I think as event professionals, we tend to, our work cup is the biggest cup. And throughout my career, from burnouts and everything, I realized it's just one of many cups: your family cup, your friend cup, your you cup, your self-care cup, your mental health, your physical health. All of that plays into showing up as whole as you can in all aspects of life, especially work. Because if you can come with compassion and grace for other individuals professionally, I'll always remember earlier on in my career, I had a supplier that said, oh, hey, can't get this deadline done, but I'll work over the weekend. And I called and I said, I know it's your wife's birthday. Like, I am not going to look at this until Tuesday. Thank you for just, informing me. And from there, we're able to just have better quality of life when we can all just jump in and work together through it all. And I think that's something that as planners, we have such a great responsibility, because we can help give longer deadlines, right? We have the ability to, as the deadlines and the tasks trickle down to the supplier side, we have the ability to give them a friendly heads up to say, hey, extend this as long as possible, giving that environment where I don't look for yes people that I work with. And I think that's really great, because when you have people that are experts in their field come and say, I understand what you're saying, this scenario won't work, but this will, you're able to trust them. That's what, I feel like can turn good events into great, because you're able to be vulnerable and honest with each other in that scenario. I never want people to be scared. I always say when we're concepting, you can, whoever the proposal writer is, even if it's a coordinator, you can bring your mother onto these calls, and I will always make time for you. So if you feel like you have a question and it's important and it's going to save you time, then give me a call, because I'll always make time for you, regardless of your title. I want to be able to set you up for success so that you can go out for that hike after work, so that you can enjoy family time if you have pets or anything of that sort, because we're all just humans at the end of the day.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, you mentioned burnout, and is that
Mm,
something that you want to talk more about? I mean, that's a tough topic, and you know, hearing you talk about how you face your career and all the different work that you've done, it does sound like you've also added a lot of work to your plate, right? You take everything on,
oh
and
my
then
goodness.
that
Yeah,
can have its challenges, right?
absolutely. We could talk about burnout and stressed out. And my learning lesson there was boundaries. Healthy boundaries is what's able to make me stay sustainable and have a future in this industry. Because I remember in my 20s, I would say, yes, I can do that. I can add that to my plate. I just have to eat lunch at my desk, and I won't use the restroom today, and it'll be fine. And if I just hustle, that hustle mentality was, and my ability to not say no and take on work really burnt me out. And so that I take accountability for, because I kept saying yes. And there was times where if I just approached my manager, my leadership, and said, okay, here's the 5 tasks. I can get 3 of them done. Please help me. Which 3 are the most important? What's priority there? Versus like crying at 10 p.m., losing a proposal, or coming into the office really early to just work all day. I think a lot of times we are so passionate about what we do that we take on things that we don't have to, especially because it's all a team mindset. People can, um, I learned this in my professional cheerleading career, is before I go and do something for my own personal gain, like in the events world, I would say, instead of doing my expenses, I see that my colleague is going to work until 7 p.m. So I'm going to say, hey, how can I add value to your life? Let's do this together so we're both out at 6. And when you approach things with that mentality and that teamwork, then you're able to not burn out, not feel like you're alone. Especially planners, we tend to all be remote and kind of sideload and just focused on whatever programs that we have. And so I actually love attending events with fellow planners, because there's just this look where I say, I feel you. I understand completely what you're going through, how your day to day is. And from there, just being able to share with one another that those experiences, the goods and the bads, it it really helps, get that tension off your kind of shoulders. And from there, I always kind of approach things with solution oriented. So if someone's can't find a DJ in Florida, then I say, here, that's where the network comes in. I was like, here, let me add value to your life. Let me just introduce you to this individual. And so, yeah, stressed out, burned out. I will say now with my career at CWT, I feel so taken care of. I come back from my holiday recently, and I thought I was going to have to play catch up, have hundreds of emails in my inbox, and my team had me. And they, you know, it's a really big breath of fresh air that the work culture there is, work is just a part of your life. It's not your whole life. So you how can I keep you accountable in setting your healthy boundaries so that you can fill your other cups? And it's just wonderful. And I think that the leadership that is placed, there's a difference between managers and leaders. And I truly believe that the leaders that are in the positions that they are, like, they were born to be leaders, and they have greatly helped me professionally and personally, and just keeping me on track with everything. So stress, burnout, work burnout. It's not a badge of honor to say, I'm so busy. I have so much work. I haven't slept, like that's not okay, especially. And I'm seeing this future generation come up and really stand for that, which is beautiful. And there's something about the next generation that's a little unhinged that I completely love, because things are definitely going to change. And if you can look at change, I don't know, for me, I look at change and I'm like, yes, how can we adapt? How can we shift? How can we, this is a 2020 throwback. How can we pivot? Right. And so healthy boundaries, work culture, like relying on your team and really hold yourself accountable to what you say in regards to the amount of your workload. Leave time to stand up, go outside, listen to your podcast, go get coffee, hug your significant other, leave time for all of those things because that actually fuels you up. That's why a lot of people go on vacation and they come back refreshed, refueled, recharged. A lot of times we tend to step on the pedal when we're all on empty, and that's coming up. Like October is that month. A lot of time, it's Q4. People are trying to close out for the year, plan for next year. A lot of things I'm seeing less lead way time. So you have shorter deadlines. So figure out with your team how you can work smarter, not harder, because we need you. We can't have people. I always say, I would never want a supplier partner of mine to show up on site and be like half a human, right? Like in dedication of providing excellence in success for this particular program. I want you to feel as whole as possible. So you come in with a positive mental attitude and you've had enough sleep. Like I need you to take care of yourself as a human, because then you're going to show up better as a colleague.
Makes a lot of sense. And thank you for sharing that with us. I think a lot of people have similar experiences, and I'm good to hear that you're working with a company that provides this space for you and provides these resources. I kind of summarize that in my head as collaboration and communication being the keys to avoiding burnout. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Communication within yourself, communication with your teams, with your suppliers, and absolutely. And being collaborative through all of that. Because like I said, if we can just support each other as just the simple humans that we are, then it's going to make you better as a professional. Absolutely. Because we need you. Don't burn out, don't stress out. And we can take that statistics of our industry is the fifth most stressful careers. Like, isn't that insane? Like over half my best friend group, they're in the medical field and they're saving lives, like actual lives every day. And so don't be stressing out because you don't have enough turkey sandwiches. You didn't order enough and now you have more ham. Like just take a moment to just take a breather and realize, okay, is this really going to impact? Or it's a learning lesson for the next time, because in our industry, we're constantly shifting and changing and we're just doing our best to keep up. And so if you actually, again, going back to my or actually not professional cheerleading, I was an all-star cheerleader at this time. My gymnastics coach said, do the best that you can with what you have in this moment. So, and your best can be different every single day. And so don't be too hard on yourself too. Because I think a lot of times, I can, from absolute experience, be a cheerleader for yourself. And when you rally, when you're rooting for yourself, then the biggest critic, which is also yourself, can't be present at the same time. So if you're rooting for yourself, you're saying, okay, it's okay, have some grace, have some compassion for others and for yourself. Tomorrow is a new day. You show up the best that you could for this. It might be only 6 hours of productivity. The next day, it may be you're extremely motivated to get through more items, but give yourself a pat on the back. We're doing the best that we can just every single day.
Great message to end on. Thanks for sharing that with us. So I want to wrap up there, but I think you've shared some really interesting life stories. I think a lot of stuff that you've shared is very relatable. A lot of people will have similar experiences, but also some great advice. And I think a lot of it comes from your experience. So it's always valuable to have that personal kind of advice and that share that personal experience.
Absolutely.
Wanted to get your recommendation for somebody else who we should have on the podcast because we'd love to continue the conversation on one of these topics or many of the topics that we've covered today.
I love that. Okay. Well, if I have to recommend someone, it's actually a new planner friend of mine. Her name is Lindsay Adams. I met her in Madrid on a fam, and we sat front and center at a flamenco show. So we felt the vibration and the experience. And I think she could have some just great conversations with you and really add value to the listeners. She was just, I wish I met her sooner in my life. She's just one of those just expert professional in what she does. She's based in Minneapolis, and you'll definitely get some laughs with her. So Lindsay Adams is my recommendation.
Perfect. Appreciate that. And hopefully we'll get in touch with Lindsay and have her on the show soon. Thuy, always a pleasure. Thank you for being with us today and thank you for sharing everything so openly. Wish you lots of success and we'll be seeing you at IMEX America very soon.
Thank you so much.